Hello world. I am easily distracted. I also haven't the foggiest idea what I'm doing when it comes to writing scripts for YouTube videos. Anyway, this is the first devlog for Facility 42. This little high difficulty 2.5D platformer I've been working on the Unity game engine for the last couple months. I've been using the Unity game engine to make games for a couple years now, but yeah, this is the first one I've decided to make a devlog of. The elevator pitch of this project is essentially a platformer, right? But there's no checkpoints or starting at the start of the level when you die, which means every time you cark it, it's back to the start with you. Instead of checkpoints, this game will have power-ups that stay with you even after you die. The power-ups in question will also serve to make the levels of the game before you acquire them completely trivial. Which kind of feeds into the next design element of Facility 42, which is a speedrunning focus, which entails certain areas can be completed way quicker and way easier with new power-ups, as well as a bunch of hidden shortcuts which I'm just not going to tell you about. The game will be the standard keep moving right, and there is 60 meters of pure undiluted murder between you and the point at which you can stop moving right. You have a jump button that will maybe stop you from getting killed for a little while, and gravity keeps causing you to fall into sharp pointy death. A formula that has served the platformer genre very faithfully, except the amount of sharp pointy death and highly concentrated photon beams is in, a higher quantity in relation to the surfaces that won't end your run and make you produce a sound along the lines of AAAAH! Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what to talk about first, but I guess I'll just wing it. That usually works. First thing I'm going to talk about is the player character, who is this very cube-like robot here. He was made in the Blender 3D computer graphics software, which for those who are unaware is a bloody brilliant piece of 3D graphics software. But I bet you're thinking, why a robot? Well, first of all, robots are easy to model. Second of all, I like making robots. And third of all, when I was younger, I always found something immensely cool about a robot that is not only a robot, but is also a platonic solid. And as such, the player character is a combination of Wall-E and a Bakugan. Next is the player's constant companion, which is the test facility camera, which follows the player around on an array of jets and observes the player with its massive camera suspended upon this noodly appendage. So yeah, the obstacles that will stop you and your endeavour to avoid your swift end while moving right are comprised of spikes, which kill you instantly, lasers that kill you instantly after 0.3 seconds, if you are stupid enough to remain completely still within their line of fire, lava that kills you instantly, and finally purple lasers that kill you instantly but alternate between reducing you to a pile of blue metallic ash and not reducing you to a pile of blue metallic ash on a 2-second timer. Something of a pattern there, huh? The spikes were created by having 5 different points scattered along the Z-axis, one at each edge, one in the center, and one either side of the center. Then, whenever the player is within 5 meters of sharp pointy death, each point sends out an invisible line, or ray, 1.5 meters straight upward, to deduce whether it is intersecting with the player's collider. This process is called raycasting, and occurs each frame in order to detect whether the player is currently touching the spikes, in which case, ta-da, dead robot. And the reason it only starts detecting within 5 meters is just because optimization. The green lasers are essentially just raycasting until they detect the player, whereupon a 0.3 second timer ticks down, then allowing the laser to incinerate to its little heart's content, if it had a heart and was sentient in any way. The pinky purpley lasers operate on an alternating lasering not lasering 2-second timer system instead of the ticking down continuous hazard that the green laser presents. The lava is just 2 points facing each other along the Z-axis, then aggressively raycasting at each other in order to detect whether the player is going to be incinerated. Anyway, the demo I've put together currently features 2 power-ups spread over 7 different levels. The first power-up is a double jump found in level 4, which allows the player to jump and then, in a spectacular spit in the face of the modern model of physics, jump again in mid-air. And the second power-up is found in level 7, and is a sprint ability, which is pretty self-explanatory, as it allows the player to go from a brisk walking pace to peregrine falcon with severe caffeine dependency fast. Okay, so for this next bit, I'm going to be explaining the player movement code, and it might be a bit jargony, so if this bit doesn't interest you, maybe just skip ahead. But I'm going to try and put it as simply as I can. Anyway, the player's movement. So, for the motion along the Z-axis, we take the input from the left joystick, or the WASD keys, or the arrow keys, or the D-pad, and then output that to a 2D vector. This makes it so that when you push all the way to the right on the controller, that vector returns a 1-0 value, or if you go all the way to the left, -1, 0. This makes it so that on the joystick you can choose to push the stick only halfway to the right. This would return a value of 0.50. And if you press, for example, diagonally up and right, it might return a value of 0.8 and 0.52. Anyway, then it takes the x component of that 2D vector, places it into the z component of the 3D vector, then multiplies that 3D vector by time.delta time, which makes it independent from the frame rate, as well as multiplying it by the player's speed of 10, and then uses the character controller component.move method, taking the previously discussed 3D vector. This allows the player to move along the z axis. For gravity, we start by putting 5 tiny invisible spheres underneath the player, and then checking if they intersect with any environmental colliders every frame. If any of those spheres do intersect with environmental colliders, the Boolean variable isGrounded is set to true. If isGrounded is false, then we take a 3D vector, which we'll call vertical velocity, take its y component and add the gravity variable, which is set to -30, multiplied by time.delta time every frame. Then we just use the character controller.move method, taking that 3D vector, and then we just multiply it by time.delta time again. This makes it so that the player falls gradually over time, because y equals 1/2 g multiplied by t squared. Now for jumping. If input from either the spacebar or the south button on the controller is detected, the jump function is called, which checks if the player is on the ground. Then, if the player is on the ground, we just take the vertical velocity 3D vector we discussed earlier and set it to the square root of 3 multiplied by -2 multiplied by gravity. Then, put the vertical velocity vector into the character controller.move method, because the velocity required to reach a certain height is equal to the square root of the height multiplied by -2 multiplied by gravity. And now he is prepared for all of the required avoidance of sharp pointy death that will ensue. Alrighty, the power-ups. First, the double jump. The double jump was created by getting 2 variables, one that keeps track of the player's maximum number of jumps, and another that keeps track of the amount of jumps that the player has taken. So, whenever the player gets the double jump firmware update, max jumps is set to 2, and whenever the player is grounded, jumps remaining is set to 2. Then, when the player jumps, jumps remaining is set to subtract 1 every jump until it equals 0. When my playtesters used the double jump, they were often using the double jump just after they'd fell from a platform, and got confused thinking that they had used their first jump when they had actually used their double jump. And when they went to use the double jump, they ended up getting impaled, incinerated, etc, etc. So, I added these particle effects that only play on the first jump to help you tell whether you jumped at the right spot or whether you've just used your double jump. And the sprint was really easy to add if it's just like, if can sprint equals true and sprint input equals true, go fast. Next, I bet you're wondering how I got this crisp lighting. Well, the trick is to preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius and bake for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm sorry if you didn't get that joke. Anyway, the way I got the crispy lighting is I used a process called light mapping, which is performed by figuring out where all the light bounces in the scene, then overlaying that as a texture on top of the geometry, which produces these positively, marvelously lit scenes, all thanks to the Unity engine's light mapping capabilities. Now, adding music and sound to the game was an almighty pain because I know about as much about sound design as a sea cucumber does about quantum vacuum fluctuations. But I tried out the free version of FL Studio, and then after a bit of stuffing about, I managed to create this. But then, after a few more weeks of development, I decided to shill out for a premium version of FL Studio, and that allowed me to create this version. So yeah, I got rid of the old really echoey synth and reworked the bass, and now I think it sounds a lot better. Oh yeah, I should also express the game's current lack of sound effects, which I am working on, but maybe in a future devlog. So, the first level was designed to not be as instantly murderous as all of the levels that follow. Kind of teach the basic rules of the game as quickly and as easily as possible, and I also designed it so that you can just sprint right and you don't have to stop if you do it well. The second level starts right out of the gate with this arrangement of spikes, which you have to kind of jump on top of the sharp pointy death and then just at the last second run right. Or if you can do it really well, just do it in one fluid motion. This obstacle was difficult for some of my playtesters, but it was really funny to laugh at their poor betrayed tears, but even more fulfilling when they actually got past it. Which brings us to the next bit, which is these 7 platforms which you can easily jump from one side to the other until you reach the top, where you have to jump down this hill of spikes and not touch the other side, which is covered in spikes. Then you have to go down here and not get lasered. Then you must pass through the passage of several quintillion high energy photons, which I do not wish to spoil for you, as you will probably enjoy it less if I tell you where all of the lasers are. Anyway, I bet you're wondering why this platform up here is blatantly out of reach. Well, I'm glad you asked. Too bad if you weren't wondering or asking, I'm going to explain it anyways. If you get the double jump in level 4, you can actually reach this platform, which means that you can just run along this bit and get access to this exit up here, which is much faster than taking the passage of several quintillion high energy photons. The third level is an extreme version of the floor is lava, except with robots and therefore better. The fourth level starts off with these jaws of death, which you must cleverly avoid, whereupon you can finally acquire the USB stick of destiny and double jumping. Now, my friend, with your new gravity-defying powers, you can avoid incineration on a whole new level. The rest of the level is just more extreme incineration avoidance, as now you must double jump to reach the platforms. You know what I love? Gravity and sharp objects, a combination which I think you will enjoy just as much as I do in level 5. Which is 3 death drops full of sharp pointy death. Level 6 introduces the timed lasers and relies on falling with finesse and good timing. And level 7 makes you dodge and weave between 2 sets of timed lasers and also grants you the speediest firmware update in the game so far. That being the sprint ability, which allows our robotic friend here to go 50% speedier. You have to go up these platforms, fall, don't get impaled, jump up these laser covered platforms, and then just jump one final stretch. And then press the big red button. Then excellent work, my friend, you did it. You can finally breathe free. You should feel like a ton of bricks has been removed from your shoulders, as no doubt all of the previous runs may have annoyed you somewhat, judging by my playtesters' reactions. Alright, I added a main menu which helpfully displays your current number of deaths, as well as your best time and some information regarding control methods. However, this is also where you'll be able to see all the Easter eggs you've collected. As well as this, you'll be able to access practice modes of all of the levels you've reached. Note, you don't actually have to complete a level in order to access it in the practice mode, you just have to reach it. In practice mode, restarting will just bring you back to the start of the level, which makes it really good for figuring out the optimal way to beat it. However, it also removes any Easter eggs and power-ups hidden in the level. Oh yeah, also this button here allows you to reset all of your progress and prompts you with this message. So yeah, thanks for watching. I've put a link to Facility 42's itch.io page in the description below, and enjoy speedrunning this, you magnificent speedrunners, you!